The Tomb! Oh boy, The Tomb. This map has definitely sparked a reaction online in the zombies community. This is probably the most divisive map of Black Ops 6 so far. I'd say Liberty Falls is a close second, but this is probably created more of a diversity within the community. Today, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the map, so this is basically going to be like a review, reaction, discussion, takeaways, however you want to view this video. I'm going to be sharing very specific thoughts on certain things about the map. I'm going to be going in detail, or at least as much detail as I possibly can on specific things in the map rather than just kind of doing a broad positives versus negatives type review. It's going to be me going over, you know, as much detail as possible, the things that I like, the things that I don't like, things like that, and kind of gauge how I feel about this map totally. Now, do keep in mind that I don't normally do this. This is probably the first review type video I've ever done on my channel. I've done reaction videos before, but I've never done like an actual review video before. So keep in mind, this is definitely new to me, so I'm not going to be perfect at this, but I'm going to try my best. And basically the way I'm going to do this is I don't have anything typed, I don't have anything written down or anything like that. I'm just going to be speaking, kind of doing a little free-for-all here and just sharing my thoughts as I go along. But of course, like I said, this is also sort of a discussion type thing, so please feel free to leave comments sharing your takes and what you agree with, what you disagree with. I'm totally fine with having conversations in the comments. I love doing it. I love talking with you guys. I love, you know, hearing your opinions and whatnot. Just of course make sure to keep them, you know, civil and constructive, because at the end of the day, that is the best way to deliver feedback, is through constructive criticism rather than just, you know, outright hating. So please be sure to leave constructive takes in the comments, you know, whether you agree or disagree. And yeah, of course, this is, like I said, the first time I do this. So if you guys like this, please be sure to share your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you're new. So here we go, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about the Tomb. The first thing that I do want to talk about is I want to go ahead and talk about the things that I think this map does better than the previous Black Ops 6 maps. And I do think there's a couple things, quite literally a couple of things. There's probably going to be some stuff that I miss out on and some, you know, very specific things that I probably missed. So again, be sure to leave thoughts in the comments. The first thing that I'll say that I think the Tomb does better at than the previous Black Ops 6 maps are the visuals. For sure, this is definitely the best looking map of Black Ops 6, and honestly, this might be one of the best looking Dark Aether maps we've ever gotten. Even if you dislike the map, I think that one of the things that a lot of people do agree on is the fact that this map definitely looks very, very pretty. So that is definitely one thing that this map does a lot better at than the previous maps. I also like the side Easter eggs on this map a lot more, and to be specific, I like the rewards that are given. Now, in the previous maps, we've gotten a bunch of side Easter eggs before, like Terminus has a load of side Easter eggs, but the thing is, they're not really giving you any cool rewards. They're just kind of do this and have fun, which is not a bad thing, by the way. It's just you're doing these fun little side Easter eggs, but you're not really getting anything from it. They're just kind of there, and thus I don't really feel like there's a reason to go for it rather than just to have fun. It's not really helping you in game, and I feel like we've kind of lost that. There's a lot of side Easter eggs in the older games that really did that and that would really reward you for some stuff, and I really liked that, and I felt like we've lost that a lot in Modern Zombies. And I'm very happy, once again, I'm going to go into more detail about this, but I am very happy that they brought that back, especially with this map, and especially with the golden armor side Easter egg. Again, I'm going to go into more detail about this, but I love the fact that they actually brought in a solid side Easter egg that is difficult but gives you a good reward. Now, obviously, if the reward wasn't good, you know, we wouldn't want to do it because it's really difficult. But again, we'll go into it. But I'm very happy with what they did there. So those are the two things that I really think this map did a lot better at than the previous Black Ops 6 maps. So we're going to kind of follow along this little structure here, and now we're just going to talk about the map itself. So the first thing that I do want to talk about are the visuals of this map. Now, obviously, I mentioned this when I was talking about what this map does better than the previous Black Ops 6 maps, but the question that I'm asking myself is this the best looking map of the Dark Aether era? And to be quite honest, I personally think so. Now, I don't think it's necessarily perfect. I don't think that, you know, every single bit of detail is out of this world amazing, obviously. And there are some people in the zombies community that are noticing certain things about, you know, textures, the skybox, and things like that. But the main thing that I took away from this map, especially my first time playing it, is something that I haven't done for a very long time, and that is audibly showcase how impressed I was. If you saw my first reaction or playthrough video of this map, you can see me multiple times or hear me multiple times just audibly gasp or say something that is complimenting the visuals of this map. And I have not done that for anything zombies related in a long time. So I think that is definitely a really big plus for this map. I used to do that a lot in Black Ops 4, like for example Ancient Evil. When I first, loaded onto that map, I was just absolutely mind blown by how good it looked, and even to this day, every single time I play it, I'm always mind blown by how good it looks. And ever since then, I haven't really done that for any other zombies map. And even the other maps in the Dark Aether era that we consider to be really good looking, I haven't done that. So this is the first time in a very, very long time I have actually done that. So props to Treyarch for that. Of course, if we're going to talk about the specific areas that look really good, you can obviously point toward the Dark Aether Nexus. That is definitely the best looking part of this map for sure. There's so much detail that's put in with the mushrooms, the fungus, and all the little like harvest pods that you can, shoot at and get some salvage from, and it all just kind of works together really well. Obviously, people have complained about commented on the skybox and certain textures and things like that, and like I said, it's not perfect, but this is definitely the prettiest looking version of the Dark Aether that I think we've gotten so far, at least from what I've seen. Now, again, feel free to leave your takes in the comments, but I personally think so. But not only does the Dark Aether Nexus look really good, but even outside of that, like the dig site and certain ruins inside, like the caves and things underground, it all looks really cool. Especially the really big open area where it's like a bunch of stones and there's quick revive, and it kind of looks a little bit like the crazy place except without all the crazy colors, but you kind of get what I'm talking about. That little area down there also looks really good. They even used some of the Origins like textures and things like that from that map, which I think is really cool. And even the spawn room, like the place you spawn in, I think is also really good. Now, granted, personally, I think that's the ugliest part of the map, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It still looks really good, but it definitely is not the most appealing out of everything else that we have on this map, but that's not really the biggest complaint because it still does look really good, and it's a really good spawn room. It's probably one of my favorites that we've gotten in Black Ops 6. As a matter of fact, it might actually be my favorite. But again, you can also, ask yourself, like, what does this map, in terms of its visuals, compare to as far as the other Dark Aether maps? Now, what are some other really good-looking Dark Aether maps? Like, I definitely think that the Dark Aether version of D Machine looks really good. That's definitely a note with all the giant jellyfish in the sky. That is definitely really cool. You've got certain parts of Mauer Toten definitely look really good. You've got MWZ, the Dark Aether, and that definitely looks pretty cool. But there hasn't really been that Dark Aether map that you look at and go like, oh, this is just like out of this world amazing. Now, I don't really think that the Tomb is like out of this world amazing, but it's kind of close. And of course, if we're going to compare it to the other Black Ops 6 maps, Terminus definitely looks really good, but at the same time, there's nothing really interesting with the atmosphere and aesthetic of that map. It's just kind of a facility, but it still does work really well with what it's trying to do. Liberty Falls is pretty dull for the most part, besides a couple of areas like inside the church and the bowling alley and the comic book store and the radio store and things like that, but yeah, Liberty Falls is kind of dull. And Citadel is probably the most, before the Tomb, was probably the most interesting one aesthetically. But even that, I feel like for a medieval castle, kind of missed the mark a little bit, atmospherically speaking. I definitely think they could have gone a little further with it, but they didn't quite hit it. So I think the Tomb is definitely at least the best looking Black Ops 6 map, and personally, I for sure think it's the best looking Dark Aether map. And I also talked about the side Easter eggs on this map. I think that they are very useful, as a matter of fact. But if we're going to be specific, let's talk about the golden armor Easter egg. Now, I don't really think that this is really perfect. I think that this needs a little bit of fine-tuning. For example, I definitely don't think that the boss zombies should be as tanky as they are. I kind of think they need to be nerfed a tad bit, but obviously I know there's a strategy that just came out where they like scale with the rounds and things like that, so that's definitely good to know, but I still think there needs a little bit of fine-tuning going on there. But with that being said, it is still one of the most difficult side Easter eggs I've ever done, personally. Now, I can't really think of anything else that has challenged me as much as this. I mean, I probably can, but not right now. But this is definitely one of the more difficult ones. But at the same time, it gives you such a good reward. The golden armor, basically, once you get it and you get hit, it replenishes itself. You don't need any of the plates. You don't need anything like that. It's just, it regens on its own. It's really useful. It's basically like a tier 4 armor. It's really awesome. But this was something that I was just really missing in Black Ops 6, and really just all of modern zombies, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people can agree with me on this. Like, the side Easter eggs in Black Ops 6, sure, they're fun, but they're not really anything useful. They're just kind of there to be there and for you to have a good time, which is not a bad thing. But at the same time, I wish they would balance that out with certain side Easter eggs that were actually useful and would give you good rewards. So I'm very happy that this exists, because hopefully Treyarch can look at this and use it as inspiration that this is a really good thing and that they need to continue to do side Easter eggs like this. This is really good stuff. But on top of that, there are also some really cool other side Easter eggs. Like, I think there's a free ray gun Easter egg, there's like a free Aether tool or ammo mod Easter egg that I think you get from shooting the waterfalls with the ice staff and things like that. And I know there's a bunch of other stuff, like I think there's one where you shoot the pods and like parasites come out and give you stuff. Like, there's things like that. There's some pretty cool side Easter eggs on this map. Now, it's not loaded like Terminus was, but the Easter eggs that are actually on this map are useful for your game, and that I think is really, really good stuff, and I really like that, and I really hope that continues moving forward. So that is something that the Tomb did really well. The next thing I want to talk about is, I want to talk about a lot of the Origins fan service. So this has definitely been something that's been going on in the zombies community. It's been a topic that's been a bit divisive with this map, because if you don't know, which you probably do, this map features a lot of Origins fan service, whether it's through the music, or of course the ice staff, and certain, you know, the way certain things look, and things like that. Now, people are trying to gauge whether or not the fan service is actually good or not, because even though it's fun to hear these things and fun to see these things, is there really a purpose for the ice staff coming back? Is there really a purpose for hearing that music? Is it all just kind of forced in? Or, like, what's going on here? Now, let me just say this. I am sitting here right now unsure if there is actually any meaning behind it. There could potentially be some kind of meaning behind why there's all this Origins fan service going on, or it could just be they wanted to include it. I don't know what it is, but I will say this. For those of you guys who don't know me, Origins is my personal favorite zombies map of all time. I geek out every single time I, hear a bit of Origins, I, see them mention some kind of Origins and zombies, like anything like that. Anytime there's a reference to Origins, I get extremely excited, and I am a very biased person. Please understand that, especially when it comes to fan service, I am very biased. So whether or not this was like really good fan service or not, I still loved it, because especially my first reaction to hearing One Way Out, which was the music when you open the door to Origins, open the spawn door to Origins. Like, when I heard that in this map, I freaked out. But again, like I said, I'm not exactly sure if there was a purpose for it or not, but either way, it got a really good reaction out of me, so I loved it for that. Another reason why I think this kind of caught me off guard a little bit is because at the end of Citadel, they did tease Origins a little bit with Crafts talking about the excavation site, and that's already kind of perking some ears up. But then you've also got Ravenoff, who says the dig site is not far away, and obviously Citadel takes place in France, I believe, and we know Origins takes place in northern France, so him saying the dig site is not far away is kind of getting us a little suspicious about where we're going next. So we're all thinking Origins, but then we kind of get that leaked image showing where we're going next, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, maybe it's not going to be Origins, maybe it's just going to be something else, or maybe they're just going to find like this really small way to include Origins in some way. But the more information we got, the more I kind of to draw back from the fact that we were going to be getting a lot of Origin stuff. The only thing that kind of had me going was the fact that we were going to be getting the ice staff as the wonder weapon, so that was already kind of interesting me enough, but I was still holding expectations back as far as Origins references were concerned. So I was completely blown away when they did all of that stuff. Now, again, you're completely fine to judge whether it was good fan service or, not great fan service. That's totally fine. For me, I'm a very biased person. Screw it. I absolutely loved getting that stuff. But I talked about all of the bits of Origins music that they played, or the fact that they used One Way Out, which does lead me to talk about the soundtrack, because I do really want to talk about it, because I think the soundtrack for this map is actually really solid. It's probably one of my favorite, it's up there as one of my favorite soundtrack playlists we've gotten for the Dark Aether zombies. This is something that Black Ops 6 has not really missed at, to be quite honest. Like, they have done such a good job with the soundtrack, in all of the maps, really. I will say, though, I'm not, like, the biggest fan of Kevin Sherwood's new song, Dig. Now, I'm not saying this to criticize Kevin. I think the song is actually really good, but I just don't think it's for me. I'm not, like, that kind of hardcore metalhead that will listen to the kind of metal that Dig is. That is definitely a song that's for a lot of the hardcore metalheads out there. It's not quite for me, though, so I blame myself rather than blame Kevin. So that's all I'll say on that. I was also listening to the playlist on Spotify, and I heard the Tomb theme, and I was like, this soundtrack is awesome. But I never heard it on the map, and I was so curious, like, where does this play? Or does it even play at all? Maybe it's just unused soundtrack. Like, I was like, how did they not use this on the map? It sounds so good. I'll probably have it playing in the background of the video, but I remember listening to it and I was like, what? What just happened? This is really awesome. But like I said, they did a lot of references to Origins with the music. They did One Way Out when you open the door to nowhere. You've got Death Bell, which plays during the final lockdown of the Ice Staff quest. And then you've got like a remix version of Crypt that plays when you upgrade the Ice Staff. So there's a lot of these references to Origins in the music, and also apparently there was Aether at some point. They did like a remix to Aether, which I don't know when that played. It's probably unused soundtrack as well, but I just was freaking out. Like, when I was looking at this playlist and seeing all this unused soundtrack, I was like, dude, what? Like, this is, like, why? Why are you not including this stuff? And to top it all off, I do think that the boss fight music is really awesome. I think that it really elevates the intensity of the boss fight, especially the second half when that beat really gets going and you're fighting against the elite zombies, and I think the boss fight music is great. So shout out to all of the composers, the artists, and all of that stuff. Kevin, James, Brian, Tori, you know, everyone that worked on the soundtrack. You all did a fantastic job, and I really hope that you guys continue to put in the work for this game, because y'all have been doing a fantastic job so far. The next thing I want to talk about is the Ice Staff, which is the wonder weapon of this map, of course. So, when I heard we were getting the Ice Staff for this map, like I said, I was for it, but I was really nervous about what they were going to do, because the Ice Staff is one of those weapons that they really nailed on Origins, but it could very easily, like, go downhill in a hurry. So I was very, very anxious to see what they were going to do with this. But the Ice Staff, it actually ended up being pretty solid, especially the upgraded version. Now, the non-upgraded version, not so much, which is interesting because that's kind of the same structure to Origins. Like, the non-upgraded version of the Ice Staff isn't that great, but the upgraded version is amazing, which is kind of the same thing going on here. I'm not exactly sure where I'd rank this amongst the other Black Ops 6 weapons, or Wonder Weapons. I'm pretty sure I like it more than the Beam Smasher. I might like it just a bit more than the Jet Gun, but I'm going to need more time to think about that. I'm pretty sure I like the swords better, though. I think that's still my favorite Wonder Weapon of the game so far. Now, the thing that's a bit questionable about the Ice Staff, though, is, at least in my opinion, the quest to get it. I think it's a little iffy every now and then, both the regular quest and the quest to upgrade it. I'm a little divisive on the lantern step for the regular quest, where you have to shoot the lanterns to try and get it in front of the bull painting on the wall. That is a little annoying to me, the RNG of it. It's not like the most annoying thing in the world, but it definitely, when I'm playing it in the moment, it's a little like, oh, come on, man, like, this is a little crazy. Let's stop now. But it just doesn't really feel like there's much logic behind it. Like, it just kind of seems like they stapled these steps together, and I don't know, they just don't really go together very well. At least in my opinion, they don't. Now, that's not saying it's not fun. It just feels a little weird. It's kind of the same way I feel about Revelations, the main Easter egg. The steps, it feels like there's not much logic behind it, and it doesn't really go together very well, but it still is very fun. It's kind of like that a little bit. I think my biggest gripe, though, especially in the regular quest, is the final lockdown. I think that there's way too many zombies there. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's not that big of a deal when you're using like explosive weapons like the Mustangs and Sallys and things like that, or the ASG shotgun. Things like that can definitely get you out of a pickle pretty quickly, but I still think there's a little too many zombies in that final lockdown. I think that this needs to be maybe regress just a tad bit, not too much, but just a little bit, especially the amount of parasites and vermin that spawn in. They're probably the most annoying part of it all. So, yeah, I think that it just needs to be regressed a tiny bit, and that's my biggest complaint with it so far. But the same thing can also kind of be said for the upgraded version, because the quest for that also doesn't make much logistical sense. It kind of feels like these steps are stapled together, and I don't know, they just don't really go very well, but again, they're still pretty fun. It's not the worst thing in the world. But overall, like, once you get the Ice Staff, I definitely think that this can make for some very fun high rounds, and it is a pretty powerful wonder weapon. Just like it is on Origins. I mean, that was the main thing that made Origins such a fun high round, was the Ice Staff, and I feel like the same can be said here. Now, as of right now, I don't know all of the high round strategies right now. I think I'm still a little bit in the dark on that. I will learn them as I go along, but yeah, I definitely think that the Ice Staff can be used really well for high round strategies here, just like it was on Origins. So I definitely really enjoy this wonder weapon. I think they did a solid job at bringing it back and, you know, kind of keeping it the same, but giving it its own little touches. And that brings us to the Easter egg and the boss fight, to be specific. So when this map was marketed, I was not really thinking that we were going to be getting much from the Easter egg, because they were marketing this as a Liberty Falls type experience, so I was expecting the Easter egg to be somewhat smaller in scale, and I ended up being correct. There's really not too much to this Easter egg. It's just a bunch of kind of doing the same thing over and over again, to be quite honest. Most of it is getting the Ice Staff and upgrading it, and then the actual Easter egg steps themselves are pretty easy. It's a very simple Easter egg, and it also does feel a bit repetitive because you're going to those statues and doing the same thing over and over again, shooting it with a revive shot, doing a lockdown, bringing it back, and doing the same thing over and over again until you eventually get to the boss fight. So it definitely feels a bit repetitive in that sense. But I will say, the way they utilize the boss zombies with the lockdowns and the statues and things like that, I will say, it is pretty decent. I do kind of like what they did there, but again, it still is very repetitive and very, very simple. But I think the main thing that people are talking about with this Easter egg is that boss fight, because that sucker is tough. That is a tough boss fight to do, man. I had a lot of trouble with it. But I mean, when you imagine a fight with the Sentinel artifact, I'm not gonna lie, this boss fight was definitely better than I could have pictured it. I think they did a pretty solid job at making a fight with the Sentinel artifact. But the first thing that I'm going to talk about is I'll talk about the things that I disliked about this boss fight. So the first thing, certain things about the boss arena were not very kind to me. I think it looks cool, but there are a lot of things on the ground that you can get stuck on, and it really pissed me off because that was one of the things that got me killed so much. It wasn't even like the lack of skill, it was just the fact that I kept on getting put in tough situations and I kept on getting stuck on certain things on the ground, and then I'd get trapped and I'd get killed by the elite zombie that can just one-shot you, which, speaking of which, I also think that's a little ridiculous in a sense. Now, I'm all for having like really powerful enemies that can maybe like 2-shot you, 3-shot you, but the fact that the Doppelgas especially, but all of the Sentinel artifact creatures could just one-shot you, I think it's a little bit ridiculous. So I kind of hope they tamper with it a little bit and that they fix some things, or patch some things rather, not necessarily fix things, but hopefully they regress the amount of damage that those zombies can do to you, because I do think it's a little too much every now and then. But I still think they need to not pull it back too much to the point where we're kind of losing all of that challenge, because I definitely respect the fact that they made this one really tough, which is really odd that I find this one more difficult than fighting a giant kraken or a giant like stone statue. It's really odd that the Sentinel artifact was the toughest boss fight of this game so far, but hey, what can I do? But overall, like I said, I think that for a Sentinel artifact boss fight, this one actually ended up being a lot better than I could have pictured it. I've only done it once, and obviously I had a lot of trouble doing it, so I've got a lot of anger built in me from that. But looking back at it and, you know, repeatedly watching videos of that boss fight, I definitely do respect the fact that they made a Sentinel artifact boss fight actually pretty cool and very intense, and I do think that the boss fight music really adds to that. And even though I said I complained about the boss arena and the amount of things you can get stuck on, I do think that it looks really cool. I just kind of wish that you could play in the boss arena after you complete the Easter egg. I don't know why they closed it off after. That kind of made me a little upset though. And then of course after the boss fight you've got the end cutscene, which has also been one of the more divisive parts of this map in the community, because yes, it is very underwhelming for sure, especially considering the fact that I was really excited for the narrative on this map, coming off of Citadel, thinking that we were going to get the Sentinel artifact activated on this map, or at least just get the Sentinel artifact. I thought that there would be a lot more of a gravitas to it and a lot more of a like kind of going out with a bang type of thing when you got it, but it really didn't feel like that, and I'm gonna go into more detail about this. But yeah, a lot of people are definitely not happy with the end cutscene, and there's a lot of reasons why. Obviously, narratively speaking, but there's also a lot of behind-the-scenes things going on with Treyarch that I could definitely talk about a lot, but I'm not going to here. But yeah, I definitely understand a lot of people being very disappointed by this. I certainly was too, at least the end cutscene I was. And yeah, overall the Easter egg, it's a fun experience, but it definitely is a tad bit underwhelming and simple, and it's got its issues, but I can respect it. I think it is a fun Easter egg to just kind of do every now and then, with a tough boss fight that I also do respect. It's been a while since I've had trouble in a boss fight like this. But we talked about the end cutscene and the overall narrative of this map being a little underwhelming, so does that kind of raise the question about the fact that is this narrative going downhill? Are we kind of on a downward slope right now? Because we got off to such a strong start with Terminus, where we had the end cutscene and there was all this world building going on and teasing the Sentinel artifact, and like I said, just a lot of this world building that was getting everyone really excited and interested to see where we were going, and then they kind of continued that in Citadel. Probably not as strong as Terminus, but still really solid, and we got the reveal about, you know, Richtofen being Kraft's adopted son, and kind of thinking that we were going back to Origins and getting the Sentinel artifact and all that stuff. Like, it was really interesting to see where we were going. But with this map, I thought that we were going to be at the most interesting point in the narrative. I really thought that this would be the point where everyone is getting all of a sudden super on board with it, super excited and all that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of thought that the Sentinel artifact was going to be activated on this map. Now, this was probably a big reach, but I really thought the Sentinel artifact was going to be activated, and we were going to start that transition into the Chaos storyline from the Dark Aether storyline. But again, that was a really big ask, so I didn't really think that that was 100% going to happen, but that's just kind of what I thought was going to happen. But like I was talking about, the overall narrative of this map definitely feels very underwhelming, especially considering the fact we got the Sentinel artifact in this map. I talked about the fact that it could have felt like we were going out with a bang on this map, but it didn't really feel like that. It felt like we were kind of going out with a whimper, which is very sad considering the fact that I was really excited to get the Sentinel artifact, and trust me, I still am. I think that there's still a lot that they can do with it, but at the same time, it just didn't feel like how I thought it should have felt. It didn't pull those, like, really, it didn't pull that excitement out of me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It didn't really pull that excitement out of me. So I really hope that future DLCs can really realign us back to the strong start that we had with Terminus. But of course, maybe it's the fact that this was meant to be a survival / bonus map. I'm not sure. Obviously, I kind of wish Treyarch were a bit more, I wish they set a bit more expectations there, but, you know, what do I know? Like, I really hope that future DLCs can go a bit more in depth on this, and hopefully we can get the narrative back on track. But yeah, this was definitely the least interesting map narratively, and I really hope that it doesn't continue to go on this downward slope. Hopefully, like I said, that the future DLCs can be a lot better than this. But that brings me on to what is definitely my least favorite part of this map, and that is the reused enemies and the boss spam of this map, because good god, man, they really spoil a lot of the fun that this map has. Genuinely it does, and this is similar complaints that I had to Liberty Falls, but the variety here feels so much worse because you've got amalgams, vermin, parasites, doppelgas, and now shock mimics. Like, there's just too much going on, whereas on Liberty Falls you've got vermin, abominations, and manglers. And now that they also toned down the amount of manglers that spawn in, like, Liberty Falls does not feel that bad anymore. Even though I'm still a bit, you know, I'm still complaining about the fact that they're reusing enemies, the boss spam didn't feel as bad. But it feels bad here. It feels really bad here. So not only are the reused enemies bad enough, but the fact that there's so many different types of variety of them, and it just is, it's just awful putting them all together. It's definitely the worst part of this map. It spoils a lot of the fun that I have. There were so many other alternatives that they could have taken, but they just didn't do it. Like, why didn't the amalgams just stay on Terminus? Or even the vermin for that matter, even the parasites for that matter. Like, why couldn't they just keep on doing different things as each map goes along? Why do they have to keep bringing these enemies back? Because it just makes each of these maps not feel much different. You can't just bring uniqueness to a map by just changing the way it looks, by changing the visuals and changing the location. You can't do that. You have to also do things with the zombies themselves, or the weapons, or things like that. But definitely just do different enemy varieties. That makes it so much better. And there were a lot of missed opportunities that you had on this map. Like, I remember people were talking about the fact that it would be so cool if they did some kind of, like, mummies or something like that as the special enemy. I think that would have been really cool. Or, like, a special round that, instead of it being vermin or parasites, it was mummies. I think that would be really cool. Especially considering the fact that it was, like, these catacombs. I think it would totally work like that. So, again, just a bunch of missed opportunities, and having that variety is really useful, and it makes the game so much better. So yeah, but obviously these vocals are very loud right now. A lot of people are voicing their opinion about this in the community, so hopefully they listen to these complaints. They've done a good job with some of the stuff that we've complained about, so hopefully they listen. There's also a chance that this map was like really, or like in development very early on before we even had the chance to complain about all this stuff, so hopefully with this next map or these next few maps, hopefully they take this into consideration, and you know, we'll see where we go from here. But overall, to kind of summarize my thoughts, I think that this map is definitely a lot of fun. I for sure think it's the best looking Dark Aether map that we had, and like Liberty Falls, it's definitely a fun map to go on to have fun, do high rounds, and do a very simple Easter egg, of course with a tough boss fight, but we can ignore that, but simple Easter egg, just a lot of fun to be had. I think overall, I do like this a bit more than Liberty Falls because I think this one, like I said, has a better visual appeal and has just a tad bit more to offer. And not only that, you also have an actual boss fight on this map that, yes, is difficult, but Liberty Falls had that basically lockdown sequence at the end. It wasn't even really a boss fight. So the fact that this has a boss fight is really solid. The Ice Staff is also a lot of fun to use, could definitely, you know, make high rounding a lot of fun, especially the upgraded version. The non-upgraded version is not that good, but the upgraded Ice Staff is definitely a lot of fun to use, just like it was on Origins. So I don't have any complaints there, really, besides, you know, the quest being a bit, like, iffy, in my opinion. The Easter egg is definitely a bit underwhelming. Like I said, it's very repetitive, it's very easy, it's kind of like how Liberty Falls was, but the boss fight is definitely a lot of tough. It could use some fine-tuning, but I definitely think that the boss fight, it's a very nice challenge to have, nice change of pace, for sure. And like I said, I love the side quest rewards on this. I love the golden armor side Easter egg. I love the free ray gun Easter egg, all that kind of stuff. I love what they did with the side Easter eggs, and hopefully they can find a way to balance out the fun side Easter eggs that you had on Terminus and Liberty Falls with the really good side Easter eggs with the really good rewards on this map. Hopefully they can find a way to put these together. But my goodness, man, they have got to chill with the reused enemies and the boss spam. It's definitely the worst part of this map, and hopefully, they listen to these complaints for the future. One of the interesting things that I find about Black Ops 6 so far is that each map does very different things very well. And I feel like if you combine certain content that each of the maps have, we could have an absolute classic on our hands. Like, you look at Terminus, for example, that map has a ton of content, ton of side Easter eggs, a lot of stuff like that. It has a really good Easter egg, a really good boss fight. You've got Liberty Falls that has really fun gameplay with, like I said, fun side Easter eggs, just like Terminus. You've got Citadel des Morts, which has really cool wonder weapons, really fun to use, really unique. And then you've got the Tomb, which just looks really good visually. So imagine you just took all these pieces of each of these maps and put them all in one map. There's a chance we could have an absolute classic on our hands. So hopefully Treyarch just puts these little bits of content that we've gotten spread out across all of Black Ops 6 and put it together. I feel like we've got the blueprint here. There's a few things that we need to deal with. Stop the reused enemies, stop the boss spam, things like that. Combine these assets together and we could have a really good zombies map on our hands. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and about do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know your takes in the comments. I definitely would very much like to hear what you guys think about this map. And overall, that's going to go ahead and do it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.